Go ahead. Got to unmute.
Oh, hi, Jay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Jay, I was watching your debates with Matt Dillahunty and whatever. Would you say that atheism is impossible?
Logically impossible?
Like, no, when we say the word impossible, we mean like when we say atheism is impossible, right? We would say that entails a contradiction.
Yeah, you know, we've already addressed this like multiple times, so did you just want to repeat the argument? It's a metalogical argument.
Go ahead and address it.
Right, well, I've addressed it many times, but your argument rests on the...
What argument?
The argument that you're going with. I already know this is J. Mike's argument. The argument rests on the assumption that everything is... You're not going to let me finish. So it's a first...
Okay, go ahead,
it's
go
not
ahead.
a first... Right, so the argument is about the possibility of logic at all, not a first order logic argument.
Okay.
That's the addressing of your objection.
What's my objection?
That the proposition or that the belief in atheism does not entail a contradiction. That's where you're arguing, right?
That's not what I said.
That's the argument that you guys
I
make,
said
right?
atheism, not the belief in it.
Okay, so now you want to haggle over words.
No, it's not haggling. It's actually...
It is haggling. You're haggling over words, and
Yeah,
I've
I
already
understand
addressed
that
this many
the
times.
tag addresses metalogical questions. That's fine. I understand that. Okay. But the thing is that you're also making the other claim, right? The first order logic claim that atheism is impossible logically, which would mean that it has to entail...
You don't even know what it means in terms of justification.
Contradiction. Like, who's out there of us thinking it doesn't entail a contradiction? Jay's
Okay,
correct.
so what's the contradiction?
The contradiction is if the denial or the non-acceptance of the necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge, what you're doing is you're both affirming that and denying that condition at the same time. That's a contradiction.
Well, hold on. That would just be a contradiction in the beliefs of the said person, which I just addressed, right? Even if I was to take that as true, that would just mean that one person...
No, the lack of assent.
Hold up. That would just mean that one person has contradictory beliefs. I'm talking about the worldview of atheism.
And
right?
I just said that.
Yeah, you said that.
You changed the subject.
Now he's changing the subject to an individual atheist as if it's not addressing the actual claim. This is so
this
stupid.
is like me saying theism is impossible because Jay Dyer has some contradictory position.
I never
No,
said that. So you're creating
that's
a
not
straw
what we're
man
arguing.
and
No, that's exactly what you said.
No, it's not.
But it is. He said that some persons...
This is the reason it applies to everybody is because it's prior to argumentation. Because it's a metalogical argument, it's about the possibility of logic at all. That's
Okay,
the point.
look.
That applies to
Even
any.
if you, like,
That
let
applies
me
to any
go into
position.
objection.
That
Yeah,
applies
that's
to any position.
Yeah, that's fine. So, Ananias or whatever. Okay, so that presupposes that knowledge is even possible. How would this go through on an epistemological nihilist?
You think we haven't addressed that? You know how many times epistemological nihilists have called in?
We've addressed it in the past. Just address the argument.
No, because if we've already addressed this isn't even. Is this even your position? Or are you just coming up with other positions? This isn't your position.
No, Jay. Look, you try to understand what I'm saying. Listen closely. I said.
I know what epistemic nihilism is. We've had them call in many
Yeah,
times.
I didn't say you don't know what it is. So maybe just try to listen. I said, how would this go through on an epistemic nihilist? That's not to say that I am one.
You take it to a second order level statement about epistemic nihilism. So epistemic nihilism does not accomplish what they wanted to do because there's a second order, there's a third order that they don't get out of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they do, and this is why, right? You said that the reason that it would be contradictory is because the atheist is going to have to affirm something about the necessity or like the necessary preconditions for the intelligibility of knowledge, right? The intelligibility of mathematics, logic, all that stuff. But an epistemic nihilist would just deny the existence of those things.
Yeah, and so now you can't make sentences. So now you can't make arguments.
Look, you guys are over talking.
So now you can't make arguments or sentences. We've heard it 1,000 times. That's why.
I don't need
Okay,
to hear
look,
it.
Jay, I don't care that you've heard it 1,000 times.
Because it's been addressed 1,000 times.
Yeah,
So what do you want to be like? I don't get it.
Okay, so can you just address it instead of saying you've addressed it?
Yeah, the addressing is that if you adopt that position, you can't make arguments anymore. So yeah, no, I'm talking to you now. This is my thing. I'm talking to you now, and I'm addressing it by telling.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm addressing it by telling you that if you adopt that position, you can no longer argue or make sentences at all. And if you want to, do that, then that's fine. then you have to drop the mic.
No, Jay. The thing is, the epistemic nihilist could just agree to all those conditions. It still wouldn't.
Right. So then we've won. Then we've won the debate. And they can't, if they listen, if you can't make sentences, all right, if you don't shut up, I'm booting you. Shut up or I'm booting you. Shut up or I'm booting you.
I know you want an excuse to boot me. That's fine. It's okay, Jay.
Yeah, so we've addressed this probably
the
30 times.
Doesn't get out of
you don't get out of it because you say I don't accept anything. This is so dumb.
Yeah, exactly. There's epistemic import in making those second order statements about their epistemic nihilism that they're not assenting to something.
Yeah, J Mike is so low tier, he doesn't even understand that adopting a position where you don't believe in logic doesn't get you anywhere in a debate. I mean, it's so obvious. It's so crazy. What would you say to this, Father Deacon? Somebody says, well, but I don't believe in logic or any of your positions, and therefore you can't prove Christianity.
Well, first of all, you're making a second order statement,
right?
Epistemic statement. Third point that I wanted to make, and I just addressed this in my paper, is you get them to admit some type of like epistemic deflationary position. I'm not in a position to know, okay? What do? They immediately slip back in their epistemic stuff that they want, that they just denied, to say, well, that doesn't prove, oh, wow, now you're making another epistemic statement. Notice all the epistemic statements he was saying, well, that doesn't include a contradiction, and that doesn't work for this. That doesn't do, well, wait a minute, I thought you just admitted you're not in a position to make any statements, epistemic statements.
Right.
So you want to see a contradiction? That's exactly a contradiction. And furthermore, the contradictions entailed, and I'll say a couple things because you're correct too to point out, the contradictions entailed in not a belief that you have, but the lack of assenting to the necessary conditions, while at the same time assuming the necessary conditions. Right. This is why Van Til says there is no atheist.
Right.
There's just those that deny God. So that's a contradiction. But my final point that I want to make is the point that you were making about this is a metalogical, metapistemological consideration. What comes first epistemically? The necessary conditions that make contradictions normatively binding as far as leading to falsehood, or the contradiction itself? Notice what they want to do. They want to put contradiction is the first epistemic standard, first epistemic principle, right? And then try to reduce everything to that while we're pointing out that, well, wait a minute, why should I think that's a justification? I've addressed this in my paper before too. All contradiction means is at that level, from their worldview, I can't do this psychologically without this happening.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't say it's a normative that you ought to, or that it's binding on us, that it leads to falsehood or any, or the rejection of a contradiction leads to knowledge and truth. So they fail to grasp the meta-epistemological question.
Yeah.
What stands behind there that makes the avoidance of contradiction normatively binding on us, or that contradiction leads to falsehood? They'll never be able to answer it. They'll say, oh, I don't know, I don't have to answer that. Why? Slip it all back in and pretend that I've already have an answer for it. So it's totally disingenuous and self-refuting.
Yeah, he just repeats this over and over and over as if the repetition will like make it somehow true. All right, thank you guys so much. If you would hit like and share, it's been a lot of fun. Be sure and head on over to the supporters of the show and the stream, and I will catch you guys later. Get tickets to the